Were crisis actors involved?
As I sit here and take in all of the news from every direction, all I see is deceivers, liars, corporate media, cover-ups, agenda, all pushing the same propaganda. It's time for a game changer, a visionary, an innovative person who changes the way that people think of the situation. It's time for Game Changer TV, telling it like it is. Get in the game.
There's just so much I need to get to, from Make America Healthy Again to all kind of stuff going on. But thank you for tuning in to Game Changer TV. I'm your host, Terri Lynn, and this is the channel where every day we're telling it like it is. Today's September 17th, 2025. And let's talk about the Charlie Kirk situation and ask the question, were crisis actors involved? We've talked about the Hollywood props and the squibs and everything like that, but were crisis actors involved? I don't know if you can tell, but that's supposed to be 9/11 towers on the left. It just did not merge right. But were crisis actors involved? Let's jump into this. So here's George Zinn arrested right after Charlie Kirk was shot. And y'all listen, he just says you have a right to remain silent. He doesn't even finish anything you can and say will be used against you.
Have the right to remain silent.
So is George Zinn a crisis actor? Write that in your notebook to the side. We're going to get to this. So his part in the script. Man 71 told cops that he shot Charlie Kirk in order to give the real shooter time to escape. Does that even make sense? What are crisis actors hired for? Crisis actors are performers hired for training exercises to help first responders and other emergency personnel practice their skills in realistic simulated disaster scenarios. A crisis actor may portray a disaster victim, a witness, or aggressor to create a more immersive experience. In conspiracy theories, however, the term is falsely used to claim that people are pretending to be victims of real life tragedies. Crisis actors play specific roles in emergency drills to make training for first responders more realistic and effective. Now, y'all think about if you're a crisis actor and you go sign up and it says, they probably have to sign a confidentiality clause that they can't tell what they're working on. And they might think that they're going into a simulated crisis, and then their likeness and image is used to sell the lie, but they can't talk about it because they signed a confidentiality clause, and who knows what the consequences of that would be in that clause. Just put that out there. So there's this company called Crisis Cast at crisiscast.com/solutions. Our role play actors are psychologically trained in criminal and victim behavior. So, this is a company selling their services to whoever might need it: fire departments, police departments, governments. Our role play actors are psychologically trained in criminal and victim behavior. They bring intense realism to simulated mass casualty incidents on the battlefield, during kidnap and ransom and emergency evacuation situations, and in hostile threats incidents in urban or public places. And so, Crisis Cast provides learners with an irrevocable first encounter and the emotional challenges of any hostile incidents. So I just typed in crisis actor jobs and just a couple came up, from the past. Actor for event, dream opportunity, New York. Actors needed, strangers, immersive promo activation in Phoenix, Arizona. And who has a house in Phoenix? Oh, yeah, Charlie Kirk. This was out of Atlanta. Confusion after shooting. George Zinn was believed to be the gunman who killed Charlie Kirk on September 10th after he was allegedly seen saying that he committed the shooting. And why are his pants pulled down? And was George Zinn a crisis actor? This story has so many rabbit holes in it. Listen to this.
Do you guys remember the first guy who was arrested after the Charlie Kirk shooting? A guy named George Zinn, but you won't believe the information that was found out about him. Check out this clip.
Out there, I don't want you going crazy, but what are the odds that George Zinn, the patsy that was arrested at the Charlie Kirk assassination, also saw 9/11, he saw the planes fly into the buildings and called that in and reported it, and then he also called in a fake terrorist attack at the Boston Marathon bombing, and just so happened to get arrested at Charlie Kirk's event. So Tess Keyser, she responded to this tweet. She says, Grok is a guy really involved in all three events like this post claims. And Grok fact checks it and goes, based on a review of multiple sources, George Zinn was a witness to the 9/11 attacks, and he described seeing planes hit the towers. He was also arrested in 2013 for emailing a bomb threat joke to the Salt Lake City Marathon shortly after the Boston bombing. He pled guilty to a terrorism charge and somehow magically only received probation. He was also detained and questioned as a person of interest at the Charlie Kirk assassination on September 10th, 2025, but released without charges relating to the shooting. Then Grok went on and made sure that it told you there is no credible evidence that supports claims of his involvement in 9/11's false flag, facilitating Kirk's deaths, or Mossad ties. The main suspect in Kirk's killing is now Tyler Robinson, and he is in custody. So I asked Grok to break this one down for us, and it says so, and it wouldn't give me an answer first. It said it's impossible to calculate. Well, I said use statistical probability and give me a ballpark stat on the probability of him being at all three major events. And it goes through here and it breaks it down. Then we get down here to the very bottom where it combines the probability right here. Combined probability. And it says it is equal to 0.705% or 5 times 10 to the power of 8. That translates to approximately 1 in 2 billion. Is all of that?
And that was the first guy arrested at the Charlie Kirk shooting.
He was an eyewitness to 9/11, which is weird, this guy, the old guy. And then he was arrested for threatening to bomb the Salt Lake City Marathon finish line in 2013. This is George Zinn, Z-I-N-N. There's so many different things, and I get it.
Believe me, I'm always the last person to be like, okay, buddy.
That's the odds of that
But
are in the billions.
They said that's like 0.00007% likelihood that this guy was there for 9/11. He was
Great
there
point.
for Charlie Kirk's murder,
Yep.
and there was a third component. He was there for some.
He was. I think he was arrested for terrorism, allegedly.
Listen, if there's anybody that doesn't
you
go
have a
down the
clip on
rabbit
that?
hole, it's me. This guy's got some explaining to do.
He was an eyewitness to 9/11, which is weird, this guy, the old guy. And then he was arrested for threatening to bomb the Salt Lake City Marathon finish line in 2013. This is George Zinn, Z-I-N-N.
So the likelihood of George Zinn being at all three events was 1 in 2 billion probability. Well, do y'all remember another crisis actor from Utah in 3 false flag events? Mormon missionary at Boston bombing in France. That's what I put in there because I couldn't remember his name. Mormon missionary Mason Wells was present near the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013, just like George Zinn. He was in Paris during the 2015 terrorist attacks and was injured in the 2016 Brussels airport bombing. And he was a teenager in all these places. Wells, who was serving as a missionary in France and Belgium, survived all 3 attacks, although he sustained serious injuries in Brussels. Okay? Now, remember, to be in all 3 is a 1 in 2 billion chances. Okay, so here was the article. Third brush with terrorism. Mason Wells, and the first one was in 2013, so he would have been 16 years old at the first terroristic attack. Mason Wells, 19, has been near 2 other terrorist attacks in Paris and Boston. And here were his parents. Mormon missionary from Utah. What else just happened in Utah? among Belgian bombing survivors. 3 Mormon missionaries based in Paris were badly hurt Tuesday when the blast from Brussels airport, the Church of Latter-day Saints confirmed. So here's the parents of a 19-year-old boy that got in a bombing explosion in Paris. And let's see what their demeanor looks like. I know I'd be out of my mind if one of my kids was in an explosion. They'd have to have me strapped down on a gurney with drugs on me. I'd be screaming, "Help me, Jesus! Help me, Jesus!" Because I love my babies. They get on my last nerve, but I love my boys. And the oldest one's 31 years old, but my youngest boy's 25. But I love those kids. And if something happened to them, I'd be out of my mind. So let's see these people talk about their son, 19 years old, in a bombing and see if the emotions line up.
Recuperating well. He's in as good spirits as can be expected. Having gone through the attack, he was very close to the bomb, he said, when it exploded. It's a miracle that he made it through as easily as he did with lower leg injuries and some shrapnel and light minor burns.
Mason was in France.
Okay, he said light burns, okay? Y'all listen. Now write this down. Mason Wells had light burns according to his father.
Minor burns.
Mason was in France up until 5 weeks ago when he got to Brussels. So we've dealt with this, or we've worried. We've heard about something on the news. We have to get on quickly and find out what's going on. So, but this one was really close. We had been emailing with him yesterday, and I told him yesterday to be careful where he goes. And I was just really anxious to hear news, details of injuries and things like that.
American missionary injured in Brussels attack. Yes, American missionaries Mason Wells, Richard Norby, and Joseph Impey were injured in the March 2016 Brussels terrorist attack while assisting other missionaries at the airport. Wells, who had also survived the Boston Marathon bombing, suffered burns, shrapnel wounds, and ruptured Achilles tendon, among other serious injuries. Norby was in a medically induced coma after the attack, and Impey sustained burns and shrapnel injuries. So this boy's parents saw him go through 3 terroristic attacks. And he's from Utah, and his name is Mason. Now let's go see Mr. Mason from his hospital room with his light burns that his father said he sustained. And tell me if this is a crisis actor. So here's Mr. Mason, who was in 3 terroristic attacks, that the likelihood is 1 in 2 billion. And let's hear what he has to say. And y'all look at his face. His father said he had light burns. Does that look like light burns? But let's let him talk.
Well, from what I understand, we're about 10, 15 meters close to the bomb, and I have some burn marks, some really bad 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my hand, and
his father said he had light burn marks. First question, where's an IV at? Where is the machines at the head of the bed that's taking vital signs? Where is the beep, beep, beep microwave sounds going on? Okay, this looks insane. Okay, I'm going to start back. Now, y'all think he was just in a bombing incident, okay?
From what I understand, we're about 10, 15 meters.
Did y'all see how good his arm looks? Nothing wrong with his arm. His ears aren't cut. They got a few little scratches on his eyelid. And while they got his hair poking up through that little hole, I have no idea what this is about. But that don't even look like hospital bandages. But I'm going to let this play out.
Well, from what I understand, we're about 10, 15 meters close to the bomb, and I have some burn marks, some really bad 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my hand, and similar burns on my face. And afterwards, I took some shrapnel to my...
Wait, he just said he has similar burns to his face. He said he's got 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his hand and similar burns on his face. But his father said he suffered light burns.
2nd and 3rd degree burns on my hand and similar burns on my face. And afterwards, I I took some shrapnel.
Let me say this real quick. Look at his lips. Now, when I was 3 years old, my mama was in a house fire. Her whole body got burnt up. Her lips were burned. Her face was swollen. Her lips were swollen. Her color was not right. Does this look like some? Let me just let this play out. Let me just play it out. Crisis actor, 1 in 2 billion.
Burns on my face, and afterwards, I took some shrapnel to my leg, and also my left heel had a pretty decent wound, part taken out of it. But I'm very fortunate, I think, for how close I was to. The recovery is still up in the air, and the doctors here in Gauntlet are doing a great job of taking care of me.
The recovery is up in the air. Does he look like he's having a hard time recovering?
Looks like I'll have a decent recovery ahead of me, but they're doing a really good job of keeping me up to date on my burns and on my leg, and of course there'll be future surgeries soon, but they're doing a really good job taking care of me. My colleague, Elder Empey, he received some pretty bad burns to his hands and his face, but he's a strong guy. He's hanging in there really well. He's doing good, and as well the girl missionary that was there, so Sister Klein, it's a French name. She's received some pretty bad burns, but she's also doing well. I was able to see pictures of them.
Now, did that list mention a girl's name? No, it was 3 boys' names. So the script changed.
And there was also another older missionary, Elder Norby, that was with us, and he took some pretty bad wounds, but I've heard that they're taking very good care of him as well, and that brings it comforts me a lot.
Our thoughts are with him.
I was actually very conscious. I was conscious for the whole 4 hours following the bombs, and even when they went off. My burn injuries and the injury to my foot, I know, came from the first blast. I actually saw fire in front of my face and on the ground around me, and I know that the burns came from that.
Y'all, is this the quietest hospital y'all have ever heard? You don't hear noises. Dr. So-and-so, room patient, blah, blah, blah. You don't hear noise going off. You don't hear the machines going off. He's in a burn unit, and there's no kind of vital signs being taken on him.
My body was kind of lifted off the ground during the first blast, very loud. And I started running towards the exit. A lot of people started running towards the exit. And I'd taken a couple steps. About 3 seconds later, the second blast went off, and it went off to my right, and I could feel the blast. But I don't believe that I was hit with anything from the second blast. I could just feel the impact wave. And my only thoughts are that if, God, he can comfort someone like me that went through those blasts. I know that he's there for everyone. And, I would just hope that the families of those that were injured, and also those that were injured, can feel the prayers of others and how much we feel for them. I feel very lucky to have made it out with the injuries that I had being so close. And I just hope those other families and those that were injured know that there's many people that care about them and that are wishing them the best.
So I typed in, where was Mormon missionary Mason Wells from? Mormon missionary Mason Wells was from Sandy, Utah. Sandy Hook, Utah. Mormon missionary Mason, Freemason, was from Sandy, Utah. He was serving as a missionary to the Church of Latter-day Saints when he was injured in a terrorist bombing at the Brussels airport in 2016. Hometown, Sandy, Utah. Connection to terror attacks. He was also been near or at the location of 2 other terror attacks. The Boston Marathon bombing in 2013 while I was a Mormon missionary there, and the Paris attacks in November 2015. So I did a video of Charlie Kirk tied to the Mormons, and then this guy from Utah. And so I typed in, does Utah have Freemasons? Yes, Freemasons exist in Utah. The Grand Lodge of Utah was formed in 1872 and currently consists of about 1,900 members and 34 lodges. While early relationships between Freemasonry and the Latter-day Saints Church were strained, this changed around 1984, and it is now accepted for Latter-day Saints to join Freemasonry, with many members of both groups joining the organization. So then I typed, does the U.S. military use Utah for PSYOPs? The acronym Utah is not a military term for psychological operations. However, soldiers with the U.S. military have conducted PSYOP-related training exercise in the state of Utah. So the next question I asked was, how close is Sandy, Utah to Provo, Utah, where Charlie Kirk was killed? Distance from Sandy, Utah to Provo, Utah is, this says 2477 miles, but up here, look what it says, 33 miles. Y'all, this is crazy. So here's an update on Mr. Mason from, this says May 28, 2021. So this would have been 5 years after, okay? So this is June 2nd, 2021. He said he had similar second to third degree burns on his face. And just a couple of years later, there is nothing wrong with him. My mama was burned in 1969 and still got scars on her face. Crisis actors. So his update now is that Brussels bombing victim graduates from the U.S. Naval Academy. So then I typed in, does the U.S. Naval Academy train for naval intelligence? Yes, the U.S. Naval Academy provides a pathway for training and commissioning future naval intelligence officers. Okay, so I'm wondering if that's what Mr. Mason Wills is doing now. So, were crisis actors involved with Charlie Kirk's situation? We know that man right there, Mr. George Zinn, had a 1 in 2 billion likelihood of being at 3 different events, but he was there. At first, he claimed responsibility. Was he a crisis actor? Let's go hear this.
It was an interesting time when I went to, I was in Denver just on September 10th, 2001, and I'm a huge Broncos fan, so I was good. It was the opening night of Denver Broncos Stadium. I went down there, and we were playing the Giants that night. And so it was a huge event for us. I even remembered everything that happened. We opened the stadium on September 10th, 2001. And so, you know, I was, we won the Giants, which was good. I remember that was when Ed McCaffrey actually got hurt that night on a season-ending injury. And so I'm ready to go leave the hotel on September 11th, early that morning, and go back to Salt Lake City. And they said, come down, look in.
Oh, let me just stop real quick. So he was at the Denver game September 10th. He was at Charlie Kirk's on September 10th. What is the likelihood of this?
I remember that was when Ed McCaffrey actually got hurt that night on a season-ending injury. And so I'm ready to go leave the hotel on September 11th, early that morning, and go back to Salt Lake City. And they said, come down, look in the lobby. Something's happening here. They said there's a plane that's headed towards one of the towers in New York City. And we're just glued. Everybody in the lobby is just going, wow, this is pilot error. What's going on here? You know, it was very confusing. And we see that plane go in, and we just think, wow, you know. And then I think it was, what, a 912 or something like that that second plane hit that tower. Immediately chaos in that hotel lobby. There was, everybody was on cell phones. People had friends, family, everybody they, you know, knew in New York. And we just said, oh, That's got to be something. That's terrorist attack or something like that. We were quite sure. We thought that because there'd been attack like several years earlier in the basement of that tower. We thought that this was the same guy that had come in and just kind of finished the job. And so Denver immediately turned. Now Denver does have a World Trade Center, but it's really not on the same level as the one in New York City. I mean, it's just an operating facility. It's just a business facility. So I don't think it had any kind of particular attraction towards what was happening at the time. But I go down in Denver, downtown, to see what's going on, and it really hadn't hit people. I mean, it was kind of business as usual for a while. And then that night, they had frozen all the airplanes and all the flights out. I couldn't get home. So I was stuck a little bit longer, I think at least 2 or 3 days longer in Denver, and was just glued to my TV, just wondering what was always happening, because we just didn't know exactly that that it was exactly a terrorist attack. We did have some idea there was something going on, because we dealt with bin Laden before in separate instances, so we did suspect that it was Al Qaeda involved in that. I've since been to Ground Zero at least twice. The first time they were just barely cleaning up. I think I was there two years later up at New York City. I went up there for we actually had the National Republican Convention up in New York, and I went up for the National Convention, and got to see a little bit of Ground Zero. In fact, our headquarters was right across the street of the Marriott Hotel, and we could oversee what was going on there. We could see some of the workers and the things that were going on. Just very sad. Couldn't be very, very close to it, because they were still cleaning the place up, and it was still a recovery effort. And so what I did, and I left a little note on. I drew an American flag. They had a wall around there where people could leave different messages or whatever they wanted, about loved ones. And I drew an American flag and gave them, said whatever, and God bless America. And then I went back, I think a few years later, and I noticed they had blackened over the entire memorial wall with paint. And I felt very sad that they had taken everybody's sentiments and just basically just... But there was no way they could keep it anyway, because it was just a temporary wall, and they wanted to put that memorial up there. So, basically that's my experience with what I went through with 9/11. I really didn't have anybody I knew that was up there. But the feeling of, it changed America forever. It's just unbelievable with the amount of patriotism we saw, flags in every...
So there he's talking about patriotism again, and what has emerged after this Charlie Kirk thing?
Every window. And, united for that short period of time. I just wish that it could just stay that way. Somebody said that they haven't seen that kind of unity in the country since Pearl Harbor in 1941, when we were brought together and that kind of thing. And anyway, God bless America. It was I can't say it's a great experience. It was an experience I'll always remember. And that's kind of my story as far as where I was.
So I don't know when and where that video was made, but it says, recent events confirm that George Zinn, a 71-year-old political godfly, was briefly and mistakenly identified as the shooter in the assassination of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. Okay, so he's running around saying, I did it, I did it, I did it. So that's not mistaken. It should say he claimed to be the shooter. Zinn has a documented history of disrupting public events, which has led to speculation about his involvement in various events, including the baseless crisis actor claims. Controversial NFL football player Antonio Brown says you can't make this up. Antonio Brown sparks outrage by sharing 9/11 and Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. Antonio Brown ignited controversy with a tweet alleging George Zinn's involvement in both the 9/11 attacks and a recent attempt on Charlie Kirk's life. Brown claims, former NFL star Antonio Brown has ignited a firestorm of controversy on social media after posting a bizarre inflammatory claim regarding George Zinn, a man now at the center of growing conspiracy theory. Brown's tweet raises shocking allegations suggesting Zinn was involved in both the 9/11 attacks and a recent attempt on conservative commentator Charlie Kirk's life. Former NFL player Antonio Brown, known for making headlines off the field, much his own tweeted, "Wait a minute, the Jews that was used as a decoy in the Charlie Kirk assassination was also used for 9/11 propaganda? You cannot make this beep up." One video he's talking about allegedly shows Zinn linking Al-Qaeda to the 9/11 attacks immediately after witnessing the collapse of the Twin Towers. The growing conspiracy and Republic reaction. The identity and role of George Zinn remain highly controversial, and there has been no verified evidence linking him to either 9/11 or the Charlie Kirk incident. He was there. Despite this, conspiracy theorists have, and he's the one that said, "I did it. We didn't say that old man over there, he's the one. Oh, we suspect that old man's the one." He said, "I did it." It came out of his mouth. Despite this, conspiracy theorists have latched onto the narrative, further muddying the waters of public discourse. Experts warn that posts like Antonio Brown's contribute to the spread of misinformation and dangerous falsehood. So if he saw 9/11 in Boston and Salt Lake City Marathon and all that, why would he say, I'm the one, I did it, and let the real shooter get away? Unless, I don't want to get ahead of unless they change the script up. So now what's going on with Mr. George Zinn? Mr. George Zinn has now been arrested for possession of child porn. So now that people are catching on to who he is, now they have to try to deal with this. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Zinn died of a heart attack or something in jail, so we never have to see Mr. Zinn again. They had to find a way to get him out of the situation, out of the conversation. Man initially detained for Charlie Kirk killing, who yelled that he did it, had child porn on his phone. It makes zero sense. It makes zero sense that he would scream, "I did it," to let another person get away if he had child porn on his phone. Does that make any sense? If you're a child predator and you got child porn on your phone and you hear somebody get shot and you know it's going to be a big national story, are you going to put yourself in there to help a guy you don't know escape and you got child porn on your phone? That's why I say I think the script got changed. Just like the early witnesses all said that Charlie Kirk was shot in his chest. Now, I'm going back and looking at it. I've only found one from 6 days ago. Most of them that I'm seeing are from 3 days ago, and they're saying I saw it come from the neck. But the early one said I saw it coming from his chest. Let's go hear this one girl, and y'all tell me if she doesn't look like a crisis actor. Y'all, this part of my video might sound different. We just had a power surge again. It knocked off my computer, all my power and everything for just a few seconds again and came back on. I've been fighting to recover all the slides and all of the links that I had. So if there's different sounds in the recording, you understand why I'm working on getting a power surge so we don't go through this again. But listen to this witness.
However, law enforcement has not independently confirmed that either. Listen to how one eyewitness described what they saw and heard.
I heard a loud bang, which I figured a shot would be a little bit louder, but...
Now, y'all, this is immediately after it happened, and she looks like she's laughing. You know how hysterical I would be if I saw a person literally their neck blown out in front of me. I would not be smiling, that's for sure. Watch this. She looks like a valley girl.
I heard a loud bang, which I figured a shot would be a little bit louder, but I just saw it hit him in the chest, and then all of a sudden just tons of blood gushing.
I saw it hit him in the chest, and then tons of blood coming out. So I think the script got switched.
And heard.
I heard a loud bang, which I figured a shot would be a little bit louder, but I just saw it hit him in the chest, and then all of a sudden just tons of blood gushing right out where his heart is, and then he like fell over and slumped down, and everybody got down and was screaming, and then we all ran.
Now, I don't know where this from ZipRecruiter was, but it was September 2025. Crisis actor jobs needed. The listing has now been removed when you click on it. You can go look online. You can go to type in crisis actors, then go to images, and you see ads that ran for crisis actors. This one, crisis actors needed, Shelbyville, Tennessee. I don't know the date on this. Most of these were old. We need crisis actor for a live street performance happening in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, October 28th. People with great love of Southern culture and history and non-globalist sovereign mindset preferred. What were they going to do? Crisis event, medical center needs 16 actors for a mass casualty event to take place. Exact address will be given. Oh, this is 2018, March 2nd, 2018, and the event will be held on March 4th, 2018. I'm showing y'all this to show y'all that their crisis actors are real. Okay, it's not a conspiracy.
I didn't even know Craigslist still existed, but here we have an ad on Craigslist for actors needed for 2 to 3 hours to stage a protest on the Lower East Side. We're looking for 5 to 7 actors or activists to hold panels and distribute flyers in front of a venue as a peaceful legal protest. Needed for November 24th evening, 2 to 3 hours, paying $30 an hour. Okay, so first of all, fake protesters, literally paid actors. This is what pro-Palestinian protesters need to do. $30 an hour, is that the rate that you guys are okay with? Like, I'm confused. Is that enough money for the cause? Like, why is this on Craigslist? Can anyone tell me how this is an actual ad on Craigslist? And for those of you that are like, wait, it doesn't say Palestinian protest here, trust me, Jewish people are not doing this.
I'm an actor, but I was wanting to become an actor, but I found it's very difficult, so I pivoted. I'm now a crisis actor. Couldn't be going any better. I have some big projects coming up. Can't really talk about them. It defeats the whole purpose, but I'll give you one. Another gorilla is going to be shot within the next few weeks, kind of a spin-off of the whole Harambe situation, and they did give me a line. It's going to be, he just came out of nowhere. I was going to do a Southern thing with it. So let me know what I need to work on, because that's coming up pretty soon.
Hey, I got a little secret, bro. Have y'all ever heard of crisis actors? Now, let's say it's a fire, right? Or a crisis. And the fire was caused intentionally by said individual, correct? And said individual has paid crisis actors to come, because guess what? Said individual started the fire. Now, here come the crisis actors. I don't know what happened. I just seen all of the fire coming from room 301. And the next thing you know, everything was just up in a blaze. But the whole time, the crisis actor knows that the fire really started at room 101 over there, right? But the whole time, now the camera's on and they acting because they want to sell a story to the viewers, to the masses. It kind of remind me of back in the day when the Mayans would walk the motherfucker all the way up them steps and do a sacrifice in front of everybody. Was the Mayans wrong? It's their way of living. No, it ain't wrong. It's a practice. But that kind of sounds like when the man who created the water running vehicle, when he created a vehicle that runs off of water, And then someone goes on live stream and then goes and assassinate not only him, but 10 other people. Don't that kind of sound like I don't know, but I don't know who need to hit it today. But man, have you ever heard of Christ acting? Peace.
One person, but what if this person is a crisis actor? What if they are a crisis actor? It's been a while since a lot of us heard that term. Some of us may not have heard that term, but what if it's a crisis actor? Crisis actor. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that when Craigslist was the thing? Y'all remember the crisis actor? What if, what if, what if? Because remember, most of us already suspect a lot of things that have happened in this country are really our own country doing it. What if? What if? What if? Because this is not the first time something like this has happened, and then decades later we find out it was all a sham. What if?
So now they've told their story. So now they have to tidy up loose ends with the story. So the first guy who was tied to 3 different events, 1 in 2 billion chance, they're going to get him for child porn on his phone. And then the actual supposed shooter is on suicide watch. I predict he's going to come up unalived in prison, and then everything will be tidied up really nice. Tidy up loose ends. To tidy up loose ends or tie up loose ends means to complete any remaining unfinished details or task, especially those that are minor or seem less significant, in order to finalize a larger project or situation. For example, a project manager might tie up loose ends by getting final signatures on a document, or a writer might tie up loose ends at the conclusion of a story by resolving all plot points. All the world a stage. Y'all leave me your comments below and let me know what y'all think about this. I love y'all. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. If you appreciate the content found on this channel, would you prayerfully consider supporting the ministry?